What is your health care proposal and how would it be funded?
Pardon?
What is your health care proposal and how would it be funded?
Yes, it's full Medicare for all. That means full government insurance with free choice of doctor and hospital and a $500 billion reduction in corporate administrative costs like Cigna and Aetna and billing fraud and abuse. So right there you start out with $500 billion. Second, we now have the highest expenditure of health care in the world. It's $7,500 per capita per year, which is double that of the second highest countries, Switzerland and Canada, that for half of that cover everybody in their country from cradle through nursing home. So it would be funded in the following ways. One, it would be funded by an assessment on employers, which would be less than what they're paying now for health insurance. That's one. Number two, it would be funded by a reduction of $500 billion. And number three, it could be funded in a variety of ways. A security speculation tax, which could raise enormous revenues for a tiny fraction of 1% of the $500 trillion in derivative transactions this year. There are lots of ways to do it. I might add that now the government funds half of the $2.2 trillion health care bill. It does it through Medicare, through Medicaid, and through state and local government insurance plans. But it doesn't have the leverage to bargain with the drug companies for volume discounts or to control cost or enhance quality. Full Medicare can do that. Medicare now is being perforated with all kinds of loopholes and sabotage, so that's why I always say full Medicare.
Back to the two-party system.
Yes, so-called.
Yeah, well, you use the words they both flunk. I'd like you to grade your own career vis-a-vis running for president of the United States.
It's basically in the role of a dissenter who espouses proposals that are supported by a majority of the American people. That's how bad the two-party duopoly is. That your role as a dissenter in one area after another, full Medicare, living wage, cutting down on corporate crime, fraud, and abuse by aggressive enforcement, and so on, are supported by a majority of the American people in poll after poll. My reading of American history is that dissent is the mother of ascent. Almost everything that we like about this country, starting with 1775, started with dissent. And the political system has closed its doors more and more on dissenting candidates, dissenting parties, by all these restrictions and all the money in politics and all the exclusion from ballots and all the exclusion from debates. And we're paying the price for that. We have far more solutions on the shelf in this country than we are applying to the problems and injustices on the ground. And that's a democracy gap that has to be filled by, among other elaborations of democratic initiative, more parties, more candidates, more debates.
You know, given Mr. Nader's long history of working on issues of substance and getting things done and helping to found so many citizen groups that have continued on their own in a very forward-looking manner in trying to improve this democracy, isn't it odd that the other political parties won't debate him? That these candidates are scared to get on stage and have to explain beyond their rhetoric of calling for change the specifics of what they want to do? I mean, these were political candidates that came through Texas during a primary season and simply changed what they had said publicly on issues like a border fence, about NAFTA. And shortly after leaving Texas, they started to repudiate many of the remarks they made while they were here. I mean, that's the level of discourse in our political system. And I think that all of us should really not stand for it anymore.
I might add, by the way, to bolster what Matt said, is that in 2000, 2004, national polls had a majority of people wanting me on the presidential debates. So we're not talking about someone who was dropped out of a UFO in Washington, D.C. And that's the Fox poll, the Zogby poll, and others. And they ranged up to 64%.
Let's give somebody else a chance to ask a question. Anybody?
You spoke a lot, Mr. Gonzalez, about the war in Iraq. Currently, you know, the big debate is the surge. John McCain saying that the surge was successful, and Obama saying we still need to be out. I mean, just speaking on that, y'all say y'all still want to go out. Has the surge changed, you know, what you thought about it?
The surge was a coincidental factor with the shift in the strategy of the tribal chiefs who turned against the 1,500 Al-Qaeda people and drove them out of Anbar province and others. It also surged with the end of the ethnic cleansing in Baghdad, where there wasn't that many people to destroy, and they were segregated with fences for the people who remained between Shiite and Sunni. And the surge's principal effect was it allowed more police in Baghdad, more soldiers to help the Iraqis in the rest of the disruption. But we shouldn't exaggerate the effect of the surge. And the surge cannot roll back the destruction of that country and its people. We lost that war in 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, and we're still losing it because we're still endangering our national security, because that war, in the words of the former head of the CIA, Porter Goss for Bush, and General Casey, is producing a recruitment ground, a magnet for more and more young men to learn the skills of violence and sabotage. So everything's relative, isn't it? With the decline of U.S. casualties, they're beginning to say victory after the wreckage and over 4,000 soldiers dead and over 100,000 injured or sickened and hundreds of billions of dollars wasted in Iraq that could have been put on rebuilding public works and communities all over the country. That's why the Democrats are so, shall we say, ridiculous, that they don't even know how to argue this issue, or they don't even want to argue this issue. They've been so spooked by that criminal recidivist in the White House, George W. Bush.
Let me add this. I don't know if you're aware of this, but Senator Obama, who appears to be the Democratic nominee, has spent most of his time when he talks about being against the war, talking about a speech he gave before he was in the United States Senate. Since being in the United States Senate, he has voted for every war appropriation. But more disturbingly, he led a public information campaign on his website and in public speeches wherein he essentially told the American people that we need 16 more senators on our side, 16 Republicans to become Democrats in effect and win those seats so that the Democrats could have 2/3 of the Senate and override a presidential veto. The only problem with this, and it's been criticized by more people than just Mr. Nader and myself, the Democrats, along with independent senators, have a majority of the vote there. To stop financing an appropriations bill for the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, you do something called a filibuster. To overcome a filibuster, to get a cloture vote, that's 3/5 of the Senate. What this means is, if 41 out of 51 Democratic and independent senators supported no appropriation for the war, guess what? There would be no funding for the war and the war would end. So imagine what it is when the winner of the Democratic contest, rather than admit, he should be saying we need 41 of our own party to get a backbone, but instead he makes make-believe that we need 16 more senators to do this. And there's something simply not acceptable about the moving goalpost. If we get Nancy Pelosi, we'll end the war. Well, we did that and we didn't end the war. Well, we control both houses, but we'll end the war, but we don't end the war. Don't you see? At some point you just say, you know what, it's not working. It's a strategy that doesn't work. And if it did work, maybe we would adhere to it, but it's not working.